many aspects. Either you love China, either you hate it. So either you really fit in it, or you find it really hard time. So there were many students on campus, international students that were complaining about the food, were complaining about the living standards, and obviously your life gets a nightmare like that.
Maybe first you get surprised, and you can also get annoyed because people are not thinking suddenly like yourself, and then you get a little bit of okay, it's just because they are thinking differently than you, their approach is different, and that's when you maybe start to also question yourself and why am I actually doing what I do? That's maybe just because I've been brought up in a certain way of thinking, right?
So we talked about some of your early adventures. We talked about how you met, and we talked about some funny stories last time. Tell us a little bit about your university life in China.
It was English again. It was an English university, so half of the professors were either English or Western, I would say in general, and the other half were Chinese. But they all spoke very, very good English because obviously the standard of the university for them to teach there was very high. I'm sure, that doesn't mean that our professor at Chinese university did not speak good English, but I just want to stress that, they were really, really fluent, obviously. So the system, like the university system, was a British one, and the modules were an interesting blend. Like I've studied politics, so officially I was studying politics, but these censorship purposes, it's a bit difficult in China to study sort of same political studies that we do here, because a lot of stuff you cannot have those books on campus. So I didn't have, for example, any political science modules. I was more pivoted towards marketing. Not marketing, sorry, management. I don't know why I said marketing. Remember you? Management classes, and more cultural rather than political science. So, but apart from that, the thing that you study is a bit of a blend, and depending the professors that you have, they could have a certain angle to the subject. So, for instance, Jonathan and I was having a class together about Chinese management.
Nice, awkward after the meetup at the Mexican bar, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Found out. That's how actually we didn't know we had a class together. Yeah,
we didn't know we had a class together. But for example, this class, the professor brought us twice to see two. So one Chinese company and a Western company in Ningbo. And it was very interesting because you could see two different sort of approaches to business and also company culture overall. So yeah, university life from my perspective was very interesting, especially when you had those professors that portrayed, the two sides of things. Well, I'm polarizing things, but just to get viewers an idea. Obviously, the classes the majority had the Chinese students.
I think around
80%.
80%, yeah.
80% were Chinese. Mm-hmm. There were some challenges around the studying part, for example, especially around the seminars where you're supposed to collaborate with other peers and do a lot of group work. Not every Chinese student had a very fluent level of English. I think many probably did, but we're very shy, maybe, or this at least is my perception. Then I don't know whether it's true or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I would say for university context is that there is a bit of censorship around a few things, and so I don't want to say your knowledge is limited because it's absolutely not the case. It's just maybe you're taking a slightly different path. But all the professors were really, really high standards.
And those Chinese students, you said they were not too fluent in English, or they were not speaking much English. Did you manage to make any friends with them?
Yeah. I did actually. Yeah. I got the two that spoke the best English. Yeah, I have two Chinese friends which I'm still in touch to the present day. Both of them really fluent in English and really help us out with normal life. And I mean, a lot of people were easygoing, don't get me wrong. But I think that on campus, from sort of the international students, there was a lot of difficulty in mixing and blending. Because I think that a lot of students, that international students that come to China, are a bit sort of taken aback by the fact that many things are different, and so tend to stay a bit in clusters. So I think that unless you have that willingness to, to make friends and to see what is the country about, then you tend to stick a lot together. So you need to be a bit proactive yourself, because it's really easy just to stick with, Europeans and have sort of, the life you will have in London just in Igbo.
Also because it was an English university, then the campus was also maybe serving as a little bit of a safe bubble for many, so that you could go out of the bubble and then you're in China, and then go back into the bubble, and then you're still sort of
semi-UK Chinese.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So many were also maybe more living in the bubble, right? As opposed to really getting out there and then sort of have to interact with others.
And I think in many aspects, this is my personal view, but I think in many aspects, either you love China, either you hate it. So either you really fit in it, or you find it really hard time. So there were many students on campus, international students, that, were complaining about the food, were complaining about the living standards, and obviously your life gets a nightmare like that.
It is important to put yourself a little bit forward, not to stay too comfortable if there's the option, right? And that's in general, I think, when going to a different country.
There is one thing I think about China that everyone can agree. It's place in general, big cities, where you feel really safe. I've been traveling alone, and even if you don't know a word of Chinese, you always are very safe. You can see that mass surveillance, it's there, and you don't. I don't know. Did you ever felt you were unsafe?
No.
I mean, you feel really safe,
yeah.
very at ease, and it's just mainly, I think, it's the language barrier. But there are a lot of Chinese that are just, willing, if you have a translator, just to show and to help you out. And I think you just have to have the right mental attitude. Obviously, you're going to a different country, things might be different, but not necessarily worse, because I think that many of us associate saying something is different with being worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. The use of technology, it's amazing. You can do everything with one app, like WeChat. You can do everything you want, and it's very easy to send money, to receive money, to buy things, and to order a taxi. It's once you got, like Jonathan, once you know which buttons to click on your phone,
you can order food. Yeah?
Then you can do literally anything.
Anything. Yeah.
Anything. Book trains, book flights, whatever. It's really, really easy with technology. It is.
But back to university.
You can.
I just wanted to say I love the experience when there was the group work and you had to mix with the Chinese students as well. Like I had a study group with 4 Chinese girls and then me, because it was one of the classes where majority were Chinese, so we were split out, and then everyone got a foreigner. Really good experience also, because you just see how different approach you have maybe to group tasks as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something where you have to, maybe first you get surprised, and you can also get annoyed because people are not thinking suddenly like yourself, and then you get a little bit of okay, it's just because they are thinking differently than you, or their approach is different. And that's when you maybe start to also question yourself, and why am I actually doing what I do? That's maybe just because I've been brought up in a certain way of thinking, right? And then you can actually make some really cool projects together when you have a blend of different approaches and thoughts. So I really like that now.
This is really cool, and give us a better feeling of what it's like. Like we have a group project with Chinese people, for example. In what way do they cooperate differently?
I think for many Westerners, we can be a little bit, compared to Chinese, a little bit more quickly say something so that I feel that I'm contributing to the group. Where I felt the Chinese could be more, is it polite maybe, waiting to see if someone else has something to say, as opposed to being the first one to say something maybe, or
Yeah.
I think that also the reason why many times there was sort of frustration for international students is that thing that many of us weren't really addressing the Chinese students directly, but just expecting them to come forward with an opinion, because this is maybe how, I don't know, we generally do. We tend a lot to speak on top of one another, and I feel with this group work, Chinese students were in general much more collaborative in the sense that they wouldn't necessarily talk if they weren't specifically addressed. While I feel that when we collaborate, it's just, as Jonathan said, it's just about
also
talking.
Also, maybe more, we can also, at least me, I speak for myself, then try to, an idea comes up, then I can also maybe quickly try to criticize it, even if it's not my opinion, then just to challenge the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But that could, for my, at least in the groups that I was working, that could be seen also a little bit rude, maybe. At least the direct way that I would say it in, where if they were questioning my ideas, they're doing it in a very
indirect way,
more indirect way. And if in the beginning, if I didn't pick that up, maybe, then I would still just go with my idea.
Yeah.
And I think the same also for my Chinese group participants, when they also found out, okay, maybe he is just more direct than us. We shouldn't take it that personal. Mm-hmm. Then also we started to better understand each other.
And I have to say something from knowing Jonathan and having known other Danish people. They do this exercise a lot. Danes, I think you're taught in school a lot of doing this back and forth with negative. This is something I wasn't particularly taught in school either. So, for example, with Jonathan and I are talking, oftentimes, so although we have the same opinion, Jonathan is always trying to, make the reverse and saying sort of trying the opposite view, which is something at first I couldn't understand myself and would make me absolutely angry, because I'm like, we agree. Why are you now saying the contrary? But I think it's just, the way you're taught in school to challenge ideas.
And that could also be, I think, also for the professors, they were aware of this, that students can also act in different ways. So the Chinese, they would take a lot more notes and follow more what the professor was saying. Yeah. But then they were trying to, maybe the challenge there was to say, don't exactly just trust everything that I'm saying. I'm also just a person I've also just been studying. It might be wrong. So you can just go ahead and question what I'm saying. That was maybe the challenge for the Chinese students.
There was an episode, do you remember, where we were in this management class and we had the Chinese professor she was really knowledgeable. And I don't remember what was the topic exactly, but it was an American student was at a question for this professor. And the question was something around, I think, the relationship that the party has with enterprise in China, something around that level. I don't remember specifically what, but it was something around this. And the professor gave an answer, and then the American student kept firing at the professor many questions, also herself harshly coming from a point of view that was for us very clear where she was coming from. And you could sense in the class that, again, 80% were Chinese students, the atmosphere was very tense, because this girl has asked a question which is normal, but then has sort of provoked the professor in a way that she was making some assumptions. Let's put it this way. She was making some assumptions, and you could feel the atmosphere in the class suddenly froze. Everyone was feeling very uncomfortable, not just for the subject that was asked. It's just the way that this person was sort of challenging the opinion of the professor. And it's the first time I think I felt, that, okay, maybe, there is a way in which you should ask questions that is necessarily isn't the same that you would do in my country or in our country.
I think that experience totally aligns with my own experience as Chinese studying the university in the UK. It was a bit culture shock for me that these students just sit in their seat and talk to the professors directly without even thought through their ideas. For me, like as a Chinese, it's more about the result. It's more about getting things right. So we will take time to think, and we will prefer to be the last person to talk because we want to make sure what we say is correct. But for many Westerners, it's not about the result. It's about the process of reaching that conclusion together.
Good eye opener, I think, for if you can try the different approach, right, and see the other way as well.
Okay, that was cool. That was really interesting.
University life question, yeah.
That was interesting. The one question that we didn't cover is what was your experience learning Chinese in China?
Mine was absolutely non-existent because I haven't taken any course while I was in China, so I just tried to remember what I've learned before, and that was it.
You can tell me about, because you studied Chinese in Rome, and then you also did a university in Beijing also.
Okay, I can talk about that. So in 2016, me and two fellow friends went to Beijing for a month and a half to study Chinese in a Chinese university, which is Beijing Yuan Daxue, Beijing Language and Culture University. And we had a course for foreigners, but obviously taught by Chinese teachers on Chinese. And at that point, we were living on Chinese university campus. And it was that was a very different experience from living in an English campus. It was really difficult, and I don't even know where to start from. But from the infrastructure, it was everything was different, and the way of teaching the language in China was different from the way that we got taught in Italy. In China, we had very good professors. I want to stress this. We had two Chinese professors. One I studied at Harvard. She was Chinese but studied Harvard. And the other one, she was Chinese and studied in China but very high level. And we had the classes that were divided into two sort of sessions. So the first session would be with the professor that studied abroad, and she would teach us grammar. The second session would be with the Chinese professor. With the one that was studying in China. Both of the professors were called Zhang, so it was impossible to distinguish. Not kidding. And it would be about sort of practicing the language. But when in Italy we would practice the language with the professors, we would put to speak. We would maybe given some topics to talk about and talk with the classmates. While with these classes in China, it was totally different. The professor would say a sentence and we would have to repeat them. And the class will go on and on like that for a couple of hours, where we were reading some sentences at the blackboard and just all together repeat them. Because I think that the approach of the study was different, and the idea was that by repeating what the professor was saying, we would have sort of learned some structured phrases that you could then, use. And I found it very different. Just different way of learning Chinese. So you would sit there for a couple of hours and just repeating what the rest was saying, and there was no interaction within us with other classmates. And it was interesting. We did learn a lot though, because you're completely immersed in a Chinese campus. There is no way around. There were very little foreigners. And you had to try to manage, their life around campus alone. So we did learn a lot. Just different teaching experience, I guess. I I think from my perspective, if you want to learn and focus on the Chinese language, you should definitely go to a Chinese university because they have really good professors. It's just a different study method. I don't want to say that it's worse or better. It's just different, but it's definitely the best way because obviously you're surrounded by linguistic experts, and it's the best.
I think of it also with language. Then it's also again,
Yeah.
if you're in an English environment, then you also tend to then. Also, when you get tired and you get lazy, then you want to speak English then or your native language. So it's better than to move that away from you. A little bit like when you're eating a bag of chips, right? Then I tend just to throw away the bag so I can't reach it anymore. Otherwise, I keep on eating. Help yourself by then removing the safe environment.
Yeah. It's cheaper to live on a Chinese campus than to live to an English campus. It's a bit cheaper. It was much cheaper in Beijing. University fees are expensive, but once you pass through that, life is quite cheap.
Yeah. Like normal Chinese university would have dining halls and food at the cheap.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah,
they're amazing. Yeah.
These campuses are massive, are really, really massive.
It's again same problem. You can't find the way out.
You can't find your way out. They're massive.
No, I did for the first semester there. I was taking a sort of an out of the normal curriculum, a Chinese class for absolute beginners. And we just learned the basics. I think. I could sort of get around numbers. And again,
Jonathan is exaggerating now.
Get around.
Yeah, okay. He could get around. He's really talking highly about himself.
It's very useful, I would say, just to know a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Just some numbers, maybe able to ask for direction or ordering food.
Yeah, this definitely recommend to anyone who wants to study China. Even if you don't learn how to write it, because you might never write it yourself anyways, and if you're writing on your phone, you just need pinyin, so it's really easy. But definitely maybe to learn a few words, it's handy when you're in a taxi or literally just at the restaurant trying to see what you want to eat on the menu card.
Yeah.
But in general, if you have your phone and if you have Google Translate or you have Pleco, then it's absolute. You should able to make it around anyways.
Yeah.
What did you particularly like? The one thing you particularly like about your experience in China?
Yeah. No, I mean, I like that obviously it's such a big country that if you have a chance to travel a little bit around, you will experience some really, really different surroundings. Already Beijing and Shanghai, it's two big cities. Many would think it's the same. It's not. You could definitely grasp a very different atmosphere. So I think that's the beauty of it. If you have the chance to travel, definitely do it. Because it's really different. What you're seeing, it's really different. The cities are, the atmosphere, the food, obviously, and yeah,
exactly. I also want to say that
it's endless possibilities as well.
There's a lot of regional varieties, and both in terms of food, but also in terms of nature and
cultural things.
I think traveling possibilities within China, and also it is once you again get used to different apps and everything, it's very easy also actually to get around because infrastructure is
perfect,
way ahead of anywhere in the world.
You can cover very long distances in very short time compared to the amount of kilometers that you're actually traveling.
And then, to be fair, the other side of the coin, what did you particularly dislike about that experience?
Okay, I'll just answer one sentence. Maybe it's changed with COVID, I don't know. But hygienic levels, standards, I'll just leave it here.
It can be a bit Nah.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when you are traveling, I think it gives us Chinese headaches too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say exactly. If you travel in the more inland in the old trains instead,
All trains.
but
yeah.
it's weird because it's also something I would say that one of the best experiences. Also something that maybe I wouldn't like to do again. Right? So it's also the fun experience, like these night trains. If you sit on a night train. Where people have bought standing tickets, but they're lying in the middle, and
people are smoking in the trains,
Smoking.
and it's all fine. And then they're all sharing the same pot of noodles and baijiu. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's also a nightmare as well in the middle of the night where you just want to sleep.
And in 2016, we have decided to travel from Beijing to a city west called Datong, where they have these amazing hanging temples, which is the Buddhist temples that were carved into the rock at very high sort of height. So we're traveling to this Datong, which is just 300 kilometers away from Beijing. But again, we were students. We weren't really familiar with these high-speed trains. So we got a normal ticket. 300 kilometers was covered in 8 hours. We did all the stops around. But it was really fun because then you're surrounding in these super packed wagons with a lot of people. And I had actually next to me someone who was a Christian nun, a Chinese Christian nun, which is sort of a fun mix,
Yeah.
who was going to attend someone's funeral. Just to say, it's you can meet whatever, many people.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That sounds like something I wanna do as well.
You
I definitely
want
want to do. Yeah. Adventure.
Speak a bit of Chinese, Jonathan, then people are like,
Yeah, they want to talk.
yeah, they want to
they
talk
wanna
to you.
talk.
You wanna talk?
Yeah.
Take pictures of you, and you can share a bit of stories, and it's amazing.
Also, if you're sleeping, they'll wake you up and they want to talk.
I am so not surprised by that. Yeah.
They go la wa. Talk to us. So looking back, what do you wish you did which you couldn't do?
I think for me, travel more.
Yeah. I was thinking something about travel more. Wish I did. I was doing a big sort of between the 2 semesters, a backpacker trip, and there I wish I had booked tickets in advance because it was during Chinese New Year. That's when you end up with standing tickets for night trains. Yeah, so that's a rookie mistake. Yeah, buy tickets ahead of. Yeah.
I actually just had an idea. When the COVID is over, let's go together. We can have a trip backpacking and go somewhere.
Yes.
None of us have been before. Let's do that.
Oh yeah.
We have been talking a lot about going to Yunnan and to backpack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Yunnan is beautiful.
And also, we had a friend who visited these Rainbow Mountains in the north.
Oh, Rainbow Mountains. Yeah, that also looks beautiful.
They're beautiful. We haven't been, but it looks very good.
Many.
Yeah, something I definitely want to do is a nature trip in China, because the only time I went, it was more like a city trip, and the only nature things we did were actually very touristic and filled with people. So we went up this mountain and I was like, okay, finally in nature, but there were so many people. There was like being in the city center.
I might have to disappoint you. That's gonna be the case wherever you go in China. Even like any nature sightseeing place, is any site of interest will be loads of tourists.
Yeah, and wherever you have a lot of tourists, you have a lot of souvenir shops. And wherever you have a lot of souvenir shops in China, you have a lot of aggressive sellers from those souvenir shops. They kind of follow you down the street, trying to sell you.
There is also the option. They've built in an elevator into the mountain. So you can take an elevator up, and then when you arrive up there at the platform, then there's a McDonald's. That's
Oh my god!
That's China.
I love it.
Some spoiled nature, then with a cheeseburger, right? Fresh warm cheeseburger. That's amazing.
Okay.
And the another thing that I wanted to see. There is a part of the Great Wall, the hands that is by the seaside. That is sort of at the coast. It's east of Tianjin. Also, there is very beautiful, but I haven't been.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you is, of course, after that trip, you take away each other from the trip. But what else do you take away from that trip that will stay with you?
I think like I was talking about before, we both talked about before. There's a little bit lesson in questioning your own approach or way of thinking, because it's something that's very different, and you also hopefully look inwards, and then I think that's a very healthy lesson, just sometimes to not just go with what you might think is the natural way, because it's people do different, think in different ways. Also, that we are not that many people in Denmark. I think that's a big eye opener.
Oh yeah. For me, it was. I mean, sounds a bit easy to say, but for me, it was that you can literally just live with your phone. If you know enough Chinese to live by your phone, it's actually amazing. It's really. It's really comprehensive what you can do just with your phone, and it's really easy just to pay everything, and it's sort of hassle free. You don't really need cash, and
how technology can actually successfully
can really help you, even if you don't speak anything. You can book whatever you want, and it's really easy. I think you reach the next level when you can when you have like a Chinese bank account and you can connect it to your WeChat to pay with Alipay or WeChat Pay. Then you've done your game. Like you're there. It's so easy.
You are a free man. There, you can order whatever you want, book whatever you want.
So I take it that your advice to people going to China is never ever run out of battery.
And sort out the bank account.
Power bank. Sort out the bank account.
Sort out the bank account as well. Like first thing. So after the time in China, what happens? Like, did you stay in China, and why?
We're in London now.
We have tried, but it's really difficult with visas. I really wanted to work in China for a period, but it's a bit difficult with visas. And at a point, this was a fun story, but for another time, at a point, I was sort of an illegal immigrant in China. I was in between visas, and I wasn't registered anywhere. So, but this is a story for another time about how illegal I was. But we're in London. We're working now, but. Always thinking about at a point going back if it was easier with visas and jobs, and because we really liked it. So and it's moving so fast that maybe it has already been 3 years since we've been in China. Probably if we go nowadays, we will find some stuff different, and it's fun. And it's fun. It's really challenging because you thought that you had the game, and we probably haven't.
Also, there's that. I also just want to say, even though China is difficult because to travel in the sense that majority don't speak English, then people are very helpful, and also again they want to talk. There's sort of especially if you go to more inland, not at maybe at the coast Shanghai or Beijing, but really inland, then have your phone, and then it will happen in some way. Maybe it's not the trip that you have planned in the first place, but something else amazing will happen. We want more of that, more of these adventures.
All right, thank you guys very much for sharing your stories. Super interesting, and I feel I definitely learned something from it as well.
It was really fun.
It's nice to catch up again.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.